Have you ever wondered how someone can go from loving a person with all their heart to walking away without looking back? From the outside, it often seems sudden. One day she's sending sweet messages, making plans for the future, and doing everything she can to keep the relationship together. Then one day she's gone and the person she loved is left asking, "What happened?" The truth is that most relationships don't end in a single moment. They end quietly, one disappointment at a time. Love rarely disappears overnight. More often, it slowly fades beneath the weight of repeated hurt, broken promises, and unmet expectations. By the time someone decides to leave, the decision was usually made long before they packed their bags. They didn't stop loving all at once. They simply became tired of carrying a relationship that felt increasingly one-sided. One of the greatest misunderstandings about love is believing that forgiveness is endless. Forgiveness is one of the most beautiful gifts we can give another person because nobody is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, says the wrong thing, or falls short at times. Healthy relationships survive because two imperfect people are willing to apologize, learn, and grow together. The problem begins when forgiveness becomes a substitute for change. Saying "I'm sorry" means very little if the same behavior keeps repeating. An apology without action is simply another promise waiting to be broken. Over time, even the kindest heart begins to recognize the difference between someone who regrets hurting them and someone who regrets being confronted. Imagine a woman who truly believes she has found the person she wants to spend her life with. In the beginning, everything feels effortless. They laugh together, share dreams, and make promises about the future. She feels seen, appreciated, and loved. Then life becomes busy. Work demands more attention, responsibilities increase, and the excitement of the early days slowly gives way to routine. None of that is unusual because every relationship eventually leaves the honeymoon phase. The real test begins after the excitement settles. Instead of continuing to nurture the relationship, he begins taking small things for granted. He forgets important conversations. He cancels plans without much explanation. He becomes emotionally unavailable whenever difficult discussions arise. Each incident seems too small to justify ending a relationship, so she chooses understanding over confrontation. She tells herself he is under pressure. She believes tomorrow will be different. She convinces herself that real love means being patient through difficult seasons. Weeks become months and the pattern repeats itself. Every disappointment is followed by an apology, and every apology is followed by the same behavior. She starts explaining less because nothing changes after she speaks. She lowers her expectations, hoping that expecting less will hurt less. She tells herself she isn't asking for much, just honesty, consistency, and the feeling that she matters. Yet those simple needs remain unmet. What hurts her most isn't always what he does. It's what he repeatedly chooses not to do. He doesn't notice when she's emotionally overwhelmed. He doesn't recognize how much effort she invests in keeping peace. He assumes she'll always understand because she always has before. Without realizing it, he mistakes her patience for permanence. Many people don't understand how emotional exhaustion works. They think love disappears after one major betrayal, but that isn't always the case. Imagine carrying a bucket of water. One drop doesn't make it heavy, neither do 10 drops. But if someone keeps adding water day after day, eventually the bucket becomes impossible to carry. Relationships are much the same. One forgotten promise may be forgiven. One harsh comment may be overlooked. One missed anniversary may not matter very much. However, when disappointments accumulate without genuine change, the emotional weight becomes unbearable. The person carrying that weight doesn't suddenly stop loving. They simply become too exhausted to keep pretending everything is okay. This is why silence can be more dangerous than arguments. While someone is still expressing disappointment, there is still hope. Complaints usually mean they believe the relationship can improve. They are fighting because they still care enough to fight. They are explaining their feelings because they still hope those feelings matter. But when the complaints stop altogether, something significant has changed. They no longer expect to be heard. They no longer believe another conversation will make a difference. Instead of arguing, they quietly begin protecting themselves from further disappointment. To the other person, this silence feels like peace because there are fewer conflicts. In reality, it is often the calm that comes before the relationship finally ends. Consider a simple example. Imagine owning a beautiful house with a small leak in the roof. During the first rainy season, a little water drips into one corner of the room. You notice it but decide it isn't urgent. The following year, the leak grows larger. Friends tell you to repair it, but you postpone it again because the damage still seems manageable. Eventually, the ceiling begins to weaken, mold appears, and one day part of the roof collapses. Suddenly, you become serious about repairs. You hire workers immediately and spend far more money than you would have if you had acted earlier. The tragedy isn't that you were unwilling to fix the problem. It's that you waited until the damage became far greater than necessary. Relationships often follow the same pattern. Small issues ignored today become overwhelming problems tomorrow. Ironically, many people only begin making real changes when they sense they are about to lose the relationship. The phone calls become more frequent. Flowers appear unexpectedly. Long, heartfelt messages replace the short replies that once felt so common. Promises become more convincing because fear has finally replaced complacency. Suddenly, the effort she begged for months ago becomes effortless. He begins listening more carefully, showing affection more consistently, and paying attention to details he once ignored. From the outside, this seems like the happy ending everyone hoped for. Friends encourage her to give him another chance because he has changed. But what they often fail to understand is that emotional timing matters. A heart that has been neglected for too long doesn't instantly recover simply because someone finally decides to care. Think about a phone battery that has been ignored all day. The warning appears when it reaches 20%, then 10%, then 5%. Each warning is an opportunity to recharge it. If every warning is ignored until the battery dies completely, plugging it in afterward doesn't erase the fact that it was allowed to reach zero. It still needs time before it can function again. Human emotions are remarkably similar. People often give warning signs long before they leave. They express their loneliness, frustration, and disappointment repeatedly. Those conversations are emotional low-battery warnings. When they are ignored over and over again, the relationship eventually shuts down. Not because love never existed, but because the emotional energy needed to sustain it has been depleted. It is important to recognize that this pattern is not limited to one gender. Men can experience emotional exhaustion just as women can. A husband who constantly feels unappreciated, unheard, or taken for granted may eventually withdraw in the same way. A wife can become complacent just as easily as a husband can. The lesson is not about blaming men or women. It is about understanding what happens whenever one person consistently invests more emotional energy than the other. Healthy relationships cannot survive indefinitely when only one person is carrying the responsibility of keeping love alive. The strongest relationships are not built on grand romantic gestures performed once in a while. They are built on ordinary acts of consistency, repeated every single day. It is remembering the conversation your partner thought you had forgotten. It is putting your phone away when they are speaking because they deserve your full attention. It is apologizing sincerely and proving that apology through changed behavior rather than beautiful words. It is checking on them after a difficult day without being asked. These actions may seem small individually, but together they create the feeling of emotional safety that every lasting relationship depends upon. Love rarely survives on promises alone. It grows through consistent actions that quietly communicate, "You matter to me." If you are currently in a relationship, take a moment to ask yourself a few honest questions. When your partner expresses disappointment, do you become defensive, or do you genuinely listen? Have you become so comfortable with their presence that you unconsciously assume they will always be there? Are your apologies followed by visible change, or have they become routine responses designed to end uncomfortable conversations? Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is honestly evaluate ourselves before blaming someone else for growing distant. Many relationships could be saved if people treated recurring complaints as invitations to improve rather than personal attacks. If, on the other hand, you are the one who has been carrying the emotional weight, remember that love should never require you to abandon yourself. Supporting someone through difficult seasons is admirable, but repeatedly sacrificing your peace while receiving little in return is not a sign of healthy love. You can be compassionate without accepting constant disrespect. You can forgive without pretending nothing happened. You can hope for change while still recognizing when change never comes. Loving someone deeply should never mean convincing them repeatedly to value what they already have. Perhaps the most painful words someone can say after a breakup are, "I didn't realize what I had until I lost you." While those words may be sincere, they also reveal a heartbreaking truth. Appreciation delayed often becomes appreciation wasted. Real love does not wait until someone is halfway out the door before deciding they deserve kindness, attention, and respect. It chooses those things every ordinary day, especially when life becomes busy and routine threatens to replace intentional effort. Waiting until someone is emotionally exhausted before becoming the partner they always needed is like watering a plant after it has already withered. Sometimes recovery is possible, but sometimes the opportunity has quietly passed. So before you assume the person you love will always understand, always forgive, or always stay, remember this: patience is not limitless, and kindness should never be mistaken for weakness. Every relationship is shaped by countless small decisions made every day. Every promise you keep strengthens trust, while every promise you ignore weakens it. Every sincere conversation builds connection, while every dismissed feeling creates distance. If someone you love is still choosing to communicate their pain, see it as a gift rather than an inconvenience, because it means they still believe the relationship is worth fighting for. Listen before silence replaces conversation. Change before regret replaces opportunity. Appreciate them before absence teaches you the lesson that presence was trying to teach all along. The happiest relationships are not those in which people never make mistakes. They are the ones in which both partners choose, again and again, to protect each other's hearts before those mistakes become permanent wounds.